Welcome to the Bare Essentials Podcast, where the talk is real and hibernating on your goals is not an option.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Charles Wallace. I'm very grateful to have this next guest. He is a financial planner, and he will be giving us some advice regarding our money. We talk a lot about fitness, but it's very important that we also acknowledge our financial health, our financial fitness. And I at least know for myself personally, I feel like I don't pay enough attention to that aspect of my life. So I was hoping to have him on to give us some tips, some basic advice, and maybe get some people to start making those hard decisions, asking those hard questions about, are you okay, your financial health? So please welcome Ronnie Smith to the show. Hi, Ron. How's it going? Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you taking some time to share your expertise. Could you start out? Let's introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey, thanks, Charles. Thank you for inviting me. It's really exciting to do one of these. I've actually never done a podcast before, so it's pretty cool to at least try something different. Again, my name is Ron Smith. I'm a chartered financial consultant. I have a firm in Morristown, New Jersey, Celtic Financial Group, and Celtic Benefit Group. We also have an office in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, just a little bit outside of Philadelphia.
That's great, Ron. And I'm so interested in the topic tonight. Obviously, I mentioned this to you before. I feel like I absolutely need to know more about this kind of stuff. So I was really, again, looking forward to seeking out your expertise. So I'm hoping that'll help a bunch of people that are watching tonight or listening, however they're viewing this. If we could do, Ron, just an icebreaker, maybe something outside of financial planning that, even people who do know you maybe would be surprised to know about you.
Let me think. So the one thing that it cracks my wife up, is every morning when I'm getting ready for, work, in the bathroom, I always have in the background, like YouTube motivational videos playing. And she always laughs and says, will you turn that stuff off? And it's just my way of getting ready for the day and trying to get my head right for, the day to come. A little different.
No, and you know what? I'm actually glad you brought that up because I want to add to this a little bit. So I've known Ronnie for years. We graduated high school together all the way back in 1989, North Catholic. Shout out to the Falcons out there. Ron, I've never really told you this, and we're going to get into this even a little more, but I want to do this in kind of two parts, right? Obviously, I want you to provide expertise about financial planning, but I also want to talk a little bit about your fitness and some of the stuff having to do with the Ironmans that you've competed in. But Ronnie is always that kind of guy. He's posting some motivational stuff, and probably at my worst when I was dealing with my weight issues and some of the stuff I was going through. Ron, I never told you this, but some of those posts that you put up, man, I got to be honest, they made a difference some days. And it really did help me to get through my day. So I totally get it. I listen to a lot of that stuff myself. So I just wanted to thank you for that, man. I really appreciated that. So it is, people see it, man. I don't know how many people tell you about it, but they see it and it does impact people. So keep doing it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good to hear. I only do it because to me it's all about mindset, and a lot of times, there's you can go onto social media and there's people like complaining and just like whining and just the sky's falling and and I just basically try to block those people or because I just feel like there's enough stuff going on in the world. I don't need to be around negative people. So that's just my philosophy.
Well, and it's a great philosophy to have. So thanks again for that. All right, I want to start with I don't know, this may be basic and maybe simple for everybody, but I figured I'll start here, Ron. Why? Why use a financial planner? Why seek someone in your field? Why? Why should we?
I guess at the very core of doing financial planning is It's just having somebody to help you be more accountable. Similar to, AA, if you're having trouble and you want to get through something, or like, and hey, I want to lose some weight and I'm going to go to Weight Watchers just so I can stand up and say, hey, I'm Ron, I'm fat, and I want to lose 5 pounds. It's hard to do it alone, because there's a million different, YouTube like videos, you can Google everything, and the basics are the same. It's just that, at its core, a lot of times, we're lazy, or just unmotivated. And, using a financial planner, we're not really magicians. It's just that more of, we're going to try to help keep you accountable and help see things a little bit differently. Because a lot of people like, oh my God, I can never retire, and they don't know how to do it. Where I'm unattached and I'm not really emotional. It's more of, okay, if these are your goals, this is the best way to reverse engineer it and try to, back into this, so that way you have a chance of achieving it.
You just said a word, and I was going to touch a little later on this, but since you said it, I'm going to actually touch on it now.
Okay.
Somebody like me, anybody, right? What's the advice, Ron? How do you keep emotion out of financial decisions?
By having like a clear path, and having a desired goal. There's an old saying that, when you get on a cruise ship and you're going to go from one destination to the other, but it's definitely not a straight line. The captain's, in the cockpit, course correcting, hundreds of, times, throughout the destination. Kind of same thing with like life and financial planning. The market right now is in a little bit of a volatility stage, but at least if you have the end goal kind of in place, you could step back and take some emotion, say, okay, yeah, the value of my account is X today. It was X, it was Y 3 weeks ago. But as long as you believe in what you're doing and you have a path, it's a little bit easier to stay on track.
I like that. That sounds really sound. And as you were saying it, I started to play it out in my own brain. Like, that, like anything, right? Having a goal, whatever, helps you stay on track. So that's sound advice already. Again, I know some of this will be more high level, right? But what, for most of us, right? What would you recommend? Like, what should people be doing with their money now?
So to kind of give like a blanket financial advice, it's a little tough to do, let's say in this type of a setting.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the way that I would frame it is, you need to be clear on what do you want, and the way that I always say is like, envision what you want in life and try to touch it. And the way that I explain it is, if you want to, let's say if you set a goal and you say, hey, I'd like to have a Tesla, or pick a car, BMW, or, whatever it is that you like. And, a lot of times people always say like, oh, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. But you can do it basically anything you want to do in life, and the first thing is go to the dealership, sit in the car, like listen, like smell the smell of the car, like feel it, like, because the more that you can kind of touch and make that, that dream more real in your mind, then, you're basically going to start acting and doing things to get you closer to that. If you want to live in a certain neighborhood, drive through it on the weekends, take a drive through that neighborhood at make sure, like, that's how I always kind of help, people envision it, like, make it part of your, your mind and your goal, and make it a little bit more real to yourself.
Yeah, so that would even be, so in my head, if I'm playing it out, like thinking retirement, right? Or, and now as you're saying it, I'm literally in my mind, I'm like, okay, so starting to think like, when I retire, where would I like to live? Things like that. So like, what it does, even just thinking about it that little bit, it starts to put a little more perspective and makes it more tangible as to like what I may need to start doing. Besides maybe talking to you right away.
Yeah. I, like an example of like a lot of people say, hey, we're supposed to get a nor'easter coming in this weekend. And everybody's like, oh, I hate the snow. Why do I live here? you're not a tree, move. Like, if you want to live in Florida, if you wanted to live in North Carolina, start small, like, take a week vacation down there.
Right.
And next time try to take 2 weeks and maybe take a month and just see, is this where I really want to be? And there's different advantages to living there. And I mean, there's places where you go and it's nice to visit for a week, but then you're after there, after a week, you're like, I really like to be home. So if that's something that you really want to do, take a step and take some time and spend some time there. So it'll just help you clarify in your mind, if that's truly what you want to do.
And Ron, as you're talking, it's kind of amazing to me. And honestly, I should put two and two together anyway, but it's like, you obviously are a very goal-oriented person. I've actually become a goal-oriented person. But just as you're talking about it, I even this, right? Like for me, whether it was weight loss, health, whatever, right? As crazy as it sounds, I never really thought to put it together as far as how that whole goal setting, that whole process could really translate into the same with your money and your future kind of thing. So I think this is good for a lot of people to hear. I've done a few episodes already, a lot about fitness and things like that. So, I mean, this is your financial fitness, right? So this is as important, especially as we're all starting to get older. Some people listening may be younger, but for me now, definitely getting older, and it's getting to that point where I need to start making better decisions and more sound decisions. And I guess this next question could probably depend a little bit on age, right? Things like that. But I'm sure a lot of people come to you around. It's basically like, Ron, how the hell do I start planning for my future?
All right. So, the way that you want to do it is, again, it seems very simple, is you need to do a budget. You want to see, okay, in order for me to live in this house, I need X to come in. And then you say, okay, hey, let's say the number's $5,000 a month. That's the number that I need to come in a month. Then you go and say, okay, what do I know is going to be available for me when I go to retire? So you go to Social Security. So go to ssa.gov, put in your information, create an account, and it'll say, okay, your full retirement at age 67 is X. So then you say, okay, hey, I know I needed 5,000. This is saying that I'm going to have $2,000 a month coming in, for me. So, okay, so that's that's 3,000. Maybe my wife is going to have another, 1,000, 1,500, subtract that coming in. And now you're dealing with, okay, this is my shortfall. Again, not counting for inflation or anything like that, but this just is a rough back of the napkin. So then you want to focus on, okay, how do I what do I do to address the difference? And then that way you could kind of start to do some forecasting of, okay, I have this much money. If it grows to this percent, will this be available? Can I pay off this debt to kind of maybe shrink it that way? Do I buy an investment property that's going to kick off some passive income? Do I find a hobby that I like that won't really feel like work, but it's something that maybe be able to, bridge that gap? So these are like the basics, starting points of, you kind of have to know where you are. And then you want to see, okay, what do I know that is going to come in? I mean, you might have a pension and you might be set, so these are the things you want to think of, and then sometimes you might have to come to the realization of, I am way off course. That's, and sometimes I always kind of say it, it's like looking at yourself in the mirror naked. Some days it's scary, whether you want to lose weight or whatever, but it's just one of those things where if you're way off the mark, you may have to change jobs. I mean, do I have to go find a career that maybe it's one of the few jobs that, gives some sort of a pension? Do I need to find a job that, has a better retirement plan and they do more of a match? Do I just have to maybe downsize my home in order to create more passive income? I mean, freeness in my budget so I can put more money away. So sometimes you have to make hard decisions, but the problem is I can't tell you, it's very easy for me to say, okay, hey, Charlie, you need to put $1,000 a month away. And you might be like, yeah, he's nuts, and just ignore me. But if the financial planner is helping you go through this exercise, and you and your wife or you and your partner or, you yourself both get on board and say, either we do this or basically there is no retirement, it makes it a little bit easier to achieve.
Yeah, and that you know what, Ron, this is the good part about it though, right? I've always said one of the things I want to do with this podcast was I didn't want it to be all sunshine and rainbows, right? And I think you give a message there that some people might hear it, and even myself, I hear it a little bit, and it's like, I know you're right. Makes me a little nervous, I'm not going to lie, but that's another reason why I want to have you on the show, because I think a lot of people are like that, but they're really trying not to think about it. It's like, to them, 67, 65, it seems so far off, but it's not that far off. And I think these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And these are types of decisions that I've always been a firm believer in. I'd rather make these types of decisions on my own without being forced by my circumstances. So I hope that people listening will start to address these things and, reach out to a financial planner, whether it's Ronnie or somebody else, but like start thinking about it at least. Ron, you mentioned, and when you said this, I did want to ask you this. You mentioned about potentially downsizing your house or whatever. I hear mixed opinions on this next thing. Somebody said, if you can, should you pay off your mortgage, or does that make no sense? Should you just keep the money aside, let it grow, and keep paying your payments? Or if you have the ability to, should you just pay it off?
Well, ideally, you want to go into retirement with the least amount of debt possible. You would have to look at everybody's situation right now individually, because interest rates are so low, and you could potentially, instead of putting more money into paying down your home, you could put it into the market. And a few years ago, when the market was just roaring, you would say, hey, instead of that, $500 is getting a better return than me paying off my mortgage. Enter January of 2022, where, now you're going backwards. And this is why I'm circling back and saying you just need to have a plan and stick with it, because right now, it might have looked like a better choice to put more money down on the house. But as long as you still have a goal and your plan is still intact, the market is always going to go up over a period of time. Right now companies are, their stock prices are getting cut in half. But when you look at it, are you going to stop using Microsoft? Are you going to stop, going to Amazon? Are you're still going to go to Home Depot on the weekend for your chores? The world's not changing because the stock price is down. What people's values of their accounts are changing, but as long as you kind of, don't go in crazy stuff, or invest outside of your normal risk tolerances, you'll be investing in good companies that are, should be around for a while.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. So when you talk about the investing, right? So obviously a lot of places offer 401k, and there's a lot of investment that goes along with the 401k. Is it make more sense for people to, I'm assuming if a company matches, right? You want to try to take all that free money you can, right? So invest, if they're matching 6%, whatever it is, put 6%, right? Whatever you can do. But after that, should you put more above what they're matching? Or should you, if you have extra after that, should you be looking maybe for someone like yourself to maybe have this additional side where maybe they're doing more investing in other things, maybe a more aggressive strategy, things like that? Does that make sense? Or do you just keep dumping it all into your 401k?
Well, there's a couple different answers to that, because obviously you want to make sure that you get all the free money that you can, so if the company's doing a match, you want to make sure that you can, contribute as much as you can. The benefit of the 401k, outside of the, getting the benefit of putting money away pre-tax, is it takes your decision out of your hand. You make the decision to say, I'm going to put in $10,000 a year. If you leave it up to your own devices and just do it on your own, through your own TD Ameritrade or, mutual fund company, sometimes life happens. and just, oh, I can't put it away this month, I'll do it next month. It's that Mac machine, and nobody even knows what that is. The debit card, mentality where, I literally, I have a habit. Like every week on Friday, I go home and I take $300. Why do I take $300? Because back in the day, that was the limit you could take out of Mac, out of the debit. You could take much more now, but again, we're creatures of habit. But the funny thing is, at the end of the weekend, maybe even by Saturday, I don't even know where the 300 went.
Right.
Came home, I bought pizza. The kids asked me for money. I've got gas. So it's just, and you think, oh, where did all that money go? It just disappeared in life. And it's not like, let's say I spend it wisely. It was just that it just went out. And whereas if I didn't have that money to take out because it was going into the 401k and it didn't even touch my bank account, so I didn't have an opportunity to squander it, that's where I think the value of the 401k is. It takes that, potential for, squandering money off your plate.
Yeah, that I'm guilty of that too. I find now, with these other, besides the Mac machine, right? Besides that, now you have all these. It makes it even worse, I would say. Now the technology, you have your Venmo, your Cash App, all these things hooked up to your account. I find it's even easier to money where your account's like low. The hell happened, and then you look, someone, your Venmo, your Cash App, everything. So I do like the, taking it out of my hands and being able to just have it go away. No, it's kind of working for me. I think that is definitely a sound strategy. And Ron, I think this next one is really, it's kind of generic, but just as a base, right? Do you ever get this where, and you might look at people and go, well, I can't really tell you that. It's kind of up to the person, but you ever get this, Ron, how much should I be saving? How much should I be spending?
Well, I mean, again, everybody's going to be different based upon your budget, and a lot of people are spending more than they have coming in, and that's where, we're not the government, we just can't keep printing money and go, that's where credit card debt comes in and the like. I probably would say, as a rule of thumb, before you get involved in investing, like there's a million different books, and like I always find like there's a different piece of thing, a piece of wisdom that I like from each book. Like I like Dave Ramsey of, have $1,000 of cash in the house, or have an envelope of money, because stuff always happens, and does everybody agree with that? I don't know. That's just what I believe. It's nice to have a little bit of cash in the house in case something comes up. Then you want to build and say, okay, hey, I have enough in my savings account that, is not affected by anything in the market. And if, I at least have a month's worth of, expenses. COVID basically kind of proved to everybody, like, what happens if you can't work,
Right.
when the world shut down. People that didn't have emergency funds or, money put aside for rainy days, it got a little scary for everybody. So I would just say, like, do those things, and they might seem like, I don't make any money on them. They're more important to you, being successful long term, because if you have safe money put aside, then when the market has volatility, like we're experiencing right now, you can weather the storm, because you don't need to take this money out of the market next week to pay the mortgage, and I feel like a lot of people were getting used to the market just always going up, that they were taking risks that they shouldn't have.
So you start to touch on it. One of the things I want to ask you was, for, obviously it's going to be different levels for people, but, how do you protect, and wealth might be the wrong word, but how do you protect the money that you have built up, right? What are ways to protect it against a catastrophe? I don't know, maybe litigation, maybe, like you just said, a pandemic, right? What are some maybe strategies that people could, look to ensure that the money that's away isn't going to get taken some like out of their, it's out of their own hands, right? They just lose it because of something else.
Yeah, that one would be a little bit tough to, kind of get into in this type of a setting.
Okay.
I would just say that, invest how you feel about the market. That would be the first thing. People might say, okay, they might ask me what I'm doing, and that's totally not suitable for you, and here's the biggest mistake that I would just say to help protect against, unexpected loss is it's open enrollment time at your company and you have no idea what you're doing. And you ask the person next to you, oh, what are you doing? Oh, 25, 25, 25. Okay. That's how I'm, so when you invest like that, you're not taking in consideration how you feel about the money. It's your money, invest according to. I mean, if you're super conservative, don't get in a highly aggressive speculative fund, invest it, in something that is more in your timeline. And maybe it's not going to achieve as much return as you would like, but it's because, it's matching how you feel. So I would say that that's probably the easiest way. The other things you're looking at, I mean, there are products out there that have different features and there's different strategies, but that's, more like in depth, and not really for every person, so in this podcast type setting.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I mean, me personally, I mean, I'll say it out loud. I know for my 401k, I'm more of the cautious person.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather take a little and know it's going to hopefully be there as opposed to being more aggressive. So I've always been like that. So I get where you're coming from with that. All right, one of the last things I'll ask you about the financial stuff is, and this might sound crazy, and me being having no clue, right? I hear people talk all the time about your Roth IRA, your bonds, whatever, right? Like, could you maybe just couple sentences on what are some of these things, Ron? Like I'm clueless.
Okay. All right. So think of when you put together a retirement plan, you have different buckets. Just is an easy way to do it. So your emergency fund and your safe fund is one bucket. Okay. Your 401k money is another bucket. And that bucket is what you call your tax deferred bucket. So let's say you have $100,000 in that bucket. Do you have $100,000 really? Because it's a tax deferred account, that money's never been taxed. And Uncle Sam, once you start pulling the money out, he'll want his share. So in reality, that $100,000 really only has about an $80,000 value to you because Uncle Sam's going to take the difference. Okay. The other bucket would be the Roth 401k, the Roth IRA bucket. That's more of a bucket where you didn't get any tax benefit when you put the money in there, but whatever you put in there and it grew to, Uncle Sam's not going to tax, have it. So if you have 100,000 in that bucket, you truly have 100,000 because Uncle Sam's not going to get it.
I like that bucket.
Is that the easiest way to kind of, visualize that?
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I'm sitting here now going, okay, that makes sense. I like, that's what I was hoping tonight, Ron, was that somebody like me, I'm sure there's people that are going to see this. They're like, well, yeah, that might be basic. But I think tonight, what I was really hoping to do was to speak to a lot of the beginners out there, right? And the people who aren't even thinking about this. And you may agree or disagree, but I think there's more people out there who really aren't thinking of this than that are thinking about it, unfortunately, in my opinion, at least from people I talk to. I actually mentioned to a few people that I was having a financial planner on, and they were like, really, what are you going to talk about? And I start, talking a little bit about, and Ron, it was like, man, I never even thought about stuff like that. So like, again, hoping to just get some people to think a little more about this stuff.
The easiest thing that I would say, and just maybe if you wanted to end with this, is there's three basic tenets of like financial planning. What happens if I live too long? You got to save money for retirement. What happens if I die too soon? I mean, do you have enough life insurance? I mean, if you're laying on your deathbed and knowing that, okay, hey, the end's near, would you want your family have to survive on a GoFundMe page? That's, to me, like, that's more of like, I'd die twice.
Right.
And the last thing is if you become disabled,
Right.
if you get hurt, you have COVID and you're out of work, I mean, a lot of times, people say, I'm not going to sign up for the disability at work. It's X amount of dollars. I'm fine. It just, if you at least cover your basis with, hey, I'm protecting my family with life insurance. I'm protecting my income with some sort of disability insurance. And then now I can start to save for retirement. You're at least going to be on the right path to, being successful, in life.
I like how you broke that down, and I think it's poignant, honestly. And I think it should, it kind of smacks you upside the head, honestly, when you think about it that way. And I think that's what I was hoping. At least it smacked me upside the head, and it was a good way to say it. Ron, you did mention one thing there. When it comes to life insurance, I feel really good about my life insurance through my work.
Mm-hmm.
Is having that through your work, that type of policy, right? Because I some people think, oh my God, you need more than that, right? But I feel like I got a good amount through that, right? As long as I'm at my job and working there, I mean, is that acceptable, or should we always be looking to maybe have a fallback in case anything happens with your employment?
Yeah, you absolutely want to have something that you can control.
Okay.
My wife calls me a controlling asshole. Like, it just, like, she just, sorry for cursing, whatever, but
that's okay.
Here's the problem. If you have all your life insurance through your job and you get downsized, you retire, whatever, the problem with the life insurance at work is it may be portable, which means that you could take it with you. But the problem is you can't take it right now. When you have life insurance at work, it's term insurance. It's, you're getting the best bang for your buck. It's very cheap and you're getting a lot of insurance. When you leave, you have to convert it to a permanent plan. That's rarely in your best interest, because what might have cost $25 a month for, $500,000 of insurance, now it's going to cost $500 a month. Well, if you're losing your life insurance because you're being downsized, well, do you really have the extra money to keep the life insurance? It's one of those, like, it's one of those snowballs of, and that's where people, they wind up losing the insurance and they don't have any. And especially, if the benefit also of term insurance is you could buy it for 20 years or 30-year term. So that way you could take a physical when you're young and healthy, and nobody can take it away from you. You control it. As long as you pay the premium, the insurance company agreed upon a certain price for you for a certain period of time, and you control that.
Thanks for that. That makes a lot of sense, honestly. As you're saying it, I'm like, I could probably get a better deal now at 50 years old than I could if I lose my job at 60 or 65, whatever. I could get a better deal now. So that's, again, some sound advice. So thanks for that. Ron, before we jump into some of the fitness stuff, what I like to do here is, as far as the financial planning, your firm, right? Celtic Financial Group, maybe right now is a good spot. How can people get in touch with you for that, get your services? Let you talk about that.
Usually, like, I don't really do any advertising, so it's fine. It's just one of the things where it's word of mouth. But my website is CelticFG for financial group.com. Just go in there, click on there. There'll be some links, phone numbers, emails if you want to reach out to us. And I mean, we could charge money to develop a financial plan, but, my whole philosophy is, just kind of sit together with people, find out what works best for them. If it's managing money, we get paid from assets under management. If it's life insurance, we would get paid from the company. So I don't need to charge you $2,000 for me to tell you what to do. I'd rather you just use me as, your planner going long term, and I'll just help you, fill in the gaps of, the things that you need. That's just our philosophy.
Good philosophy. Thanks, Ron. So for anybody, hopefully people hearing this tonight, and listening will maybe reach out to you, or like I said, start thinking about this. It's all our futures. We need to think about this stuff. And maybe like Ronnie kind of said, if it, not even for yourself, the thing that gets me is that I want to be thinking about even more is, I think Ron, you're probably similar to me. I could give a damn about myself sometimes, but like when it comes to the family, that's what I want to make sure I'm protecting. So people, please look to protect your families, look to make some of these decisions now when it's on your own terms, and get in touch with somebody like Ron or Ron and do your best to maybe have a goal and stick to it. So, all right, Ron, thanks for all the financial expertise. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Now I'd like to, I might have been more excited because I think this is a better topic, not as much smacking me in the face, right? But let's talk about some fitness stuff. Ron, I've seen over the years, and it's always amazed me that you've competed in some of the Ironmans, and I've just always been like, wow, that's impressive. Ron, as far as your fitness, I mean, even going back to high school, would you say that has that always been your priority? Have you always stayed fit and healthy?
I mean, not really. I mean, we always, growing up, you always played organized sports, soccer. And, when I got to high school, I played football, and you always had to have a winter sport, so I would do track. I tried out wrestling. I was just way too hard. It was looking back, I wish I stuck with it. And the funny thing was, I really, up until I was age 40, I've never did any like organized races.
Okay.
And I probably didn't even run a 5K until like 2 years ago, which is funny, consider it was just that I just never really did those things. And I remember it, like I was sitting on my couch. Like, you ever have one of those days where you just like, you could visualize it and how it happened? Like I was on my couch. It was like a Saturday morning. I'm having coffee. And there was a commercial for Tough Mudder. And I reached out to a buddy of mine and I was like, hey, why don't we try that? So he's like, oh, sure. My wife's like, you've never run a mile, let alone like 13 miles.
Right.
And I was, my stupid comment was, I don't have to run 13 miles. I have to run a mile 13 times, because there was obstacles and, that was just my stupid mentality. But we did it and it was tough. I mean, it was up in the Poconos. I think it was April. So it was, they had you going in and out of water. It was freezing. And I swear I would never do it again. And then we did one like the next year. And, and after we did that, we were like, okay, what else can we do? And, we said, okay, let's do a triathlon. And this is where it's funny because like my daughter was a swimmer. I remember I would take her to practices and, they would, have practices at 4 a.m. before school and I have to drive them. I couldn't swim a lick. Like, growing up in Philadelphia, I mean, swimming was jumping up and down in the Piccoli playground.
Yeah.
Or, being around the fire hydrant,
Right.
There was no organized swim teams. I don't think, at least I wasn't exposed to it.
Same. Mm-hmm.
So literally when I would start to do triathlons, like I was the guy that the lifeguards would watch. Like they would hand off and say, watch this guy, watch it,
Right.
So, but you would do it. And like you at the end of it, you had like a self, of accomplishment, like, hey, I did a triathlon. And again, this was a sprint triathlon. It was very small. But it's just one of those, I always say it's like the gateway drug of just like, it made you feel good, really, that you were doing something that a lot of people, didn't think was possible, and once you go down that road, then we tried, like doing longer distance races. And then, my, one of my friends, at the time said, oh, why don't we try an Ironman? And I was like, oh, sure. Why not? So we did that in 2016. And that probably, like, I would say would be probably one of the best moments because I DNF'd it. Like I didn't finish it. So I made it through the swim and I made it through 100 miles on the bike, but like I had an issue with my bike and I fell and there was a part of my bike that broke. So by the time, like, they have vans that go around and try to help you like get your bike fixed. And they're like, hey, by the time we get it fixed, you're not going to make the cutoff.
Right.
And the reason that I say that was probably, very important part of my life is like, I remembered how I felt the next day. Like that, did I give it my all? Did I do everything that I could? So 2 years later, when I did it again, again, I had a better result on my bike and a better result on my swim. But the funny thing was, I remembered like when it got to the running portion. So after the 112 miles on the bike, you get to run. And the funny thing about when you're on the bike, you're like, please get me off this bike. I just want to stop. And then when you get on the run, you're like, please let me get back on the bike, because now you got to run a marathon after being. So like I took one of those goo gels or whatever, and immediately it just upset my stomach. So I threw up, and it was just one of those things where like that whole 26 miles was a nightmare because I was throwing up, I wasn't able to take any fuel in. But because I knew how it felt to fail, I was able to get it done. So I, take for what you will, but like failing's part of the journey. And sometimes you learn more from failure than you do, if I would have just succeeded the first time.
Ron, I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because one of the questions I ask a lot of people, not that a lot of people, I think I've done like 10 of these so far, but one of the questions I've been asking is, I ask people about failure, because I agree with you on this. I think failure is our best teacher, and we learn so much. So I was really intrigued as you were telling me that. And I spoke to somebody just yesterday who competed in the British Army's Warrior Fitness, finished in the top 10.
Wow.
So
okay.
2021, Bill Gaylor, top 10 in the British Army. And all he could talk about was that he thought he could have done better. He finished in like 9th overall. And he said what stuck with him more than anything was he didn't think he put the effort in, and he thought he could have done better. So hearing you talk about that, it's really crazy, because I just talked to him yesterday. So that's amazing to me. And I love not that you had that issue, but hearing the way you persevered, because one of the other things I've been talking to lots of people about, and even for myself, is that whole mental aspect of it all. I think that's a huge part of it all. Before I went into that, though, one of the things I always thought, and you might laugh at me saying not great swimmer, but I remember seeing when you were doing these, I think I might even reach out to you. I was like, Ron, you know what? I almost think I want to try this maybe, right? Mm-hmm. And then I remember seeing some of the pictures. I remember seeing the boat, and I just remember going, no way. Like I can't even imagine jumping off into the ocean, being a mile out and swimming. I mean, is there, at least at that moment, right? Is there something going through your head that you almost don't jump?
Yeah, the funny thing, that's the Escape the Cape race. And the funny thing about that is like that's run by a really great race director. And he actually has a psychologist on the boat at the jump point. Mm. Because a lot of people do get to the end of that and they're thinking, oh my God, do I want to jump off the Cape May ferry into the water?
Right.
And so it's, it is scary, but that's how you become better. You do things that I used to be terrified of the water, because I couldn't really swim, but just by working at it and trying to like focus on getting better at it, now look at me. Like now I'm not still the greatest swimmer, but I'm not afraid.
Yeah, that's awesome to me, Ron. Honestly, that to me is, I literally pictured myself being at the point to jump in, and the backlog forming behind me, where they're behind me going, just jump. And then finally somebody just pushes me off, because I probably wouldn't have done it. So I wanted to end with this part, because I think one of the things I've been trying to get across to people a lot is, and you mentioned it a little bit with even the part of the Ironman and I think you would agree with this, I think our bodies always have so much more to give. And I think it's our minds that are always willing to cut ourselves short way too soon.
Yeah.
What are some of the things mentally? I know you said about motivational speaking. Is there other things that you do to try to help build up that mental toughness?
A couple things. again, another something, stupid that people don't know is like, in the beginning of the year, a lot of people write down their goals and, this is what I want to do, and if I was to ask you, where are yours? You'd be like, that's probably in the, the table next to, where I was sitting in the morning. Like, I always like to, have people like make a vision board, and like, I have it in my office. Like, it's just something that I have. Like,
that's your vision board.
Yeah. I mean, and there's sayings on there. There's kind of visualizations of like, these are things I want to accomplish, and it's there. Like, I see it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes what happens is life happens and you just say, yeah, I want to do that, or, I want to do this, but then you don't focus on that because you're too busy just, going to your 9 to 5, getting out. By the time you get home, eat dinner, you're tired.
Right.
But at least if you, like, you set out a clear path by having a vision board.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like, plan for retirement, like, you reverse engineer it. You say, okay, hey, what do I need to do? So then you sign up for your races. Like, you plan out your year. Like, so I planned out, like, because I had like, I finished the Ironman in 2018, but I feel like I could do better. I signed up for, that same one this November, but what I'm going to do, because I know that I can do it, but now I know that I could do it better. So now I'm going to do more races kind of leading up to it. And it's a little bit easier to kind of keep myself accountable and get up in the morning and go run or go to the gym and just get my workouts in when I know that, okay, hey, I have a 10-mile race in like, 3 weeks. Because it just, to me, it's easier if do you really want it? What was the saying? Are you committed or are you just interested? So like, if you're, yeah, I want to hear about it, I'll do it. But then, like, you ask a couple questions and you leave, and you listen to the podcast but you don't do anything. Or like, okay, that's something that I really want to do. What action steps are you going to take to help keep yourself on pace?
Yeah, Ron, that's good. And Ron, I wanted to read something to you real quick. I knew today that you were going to do this. And today I had a workout. My trainer actually read this, something he had said 10 years ago in 2010. And he said it popped up on his phone. And he was on my show, Chris Wing. I'll give him a shout out. Chris, fantastic. Okay. He's like, hey, I got to read this to you. So I thought this was, perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of doing the hard work you already did.
That's good.
Yeah. When I got home today, I'm like, send me that quote. I want to read that tonight during the episode I'm doing, because I knew that you're into the motivational stuff, and this is going to be one that I actually pinned to my my board. Okay. So what I like though is it's guys like Chris, you, me. I just feel like normal people, maybe we can start to make a difference and motivate people, right? I don't think any of us would say we're self-help gurus by any means, right? We're just guys who've been through this stuff, and we've found out a way to push our minds maybe and our bodies a little bit further. But I think we're examples, especially you more than me, but examples that anybody can do it with the right frame of mind and with the right perseverance. So Ron, again, thanks. And please keep doing that motivational stuff, man. I love when you post that stuff. I always feel like it hits me at the right time of when I'm doing something. So I know, I hope other people are seeing that too. But listen, I really appreciate you jumping on here tonight. It's great catching up with you anyway. I'll probably be reaching out to you anyway about some more details about my own financial situation.
Okay.
And listen, good luck for November. Sounds like you're ready to conquer the Ironman again. So that's fantastic. So Ron, thanks again. Everybody, if you need financial help, please reach out to Ron. And again, thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This has been the Bare Essentials. Thanks for listening. And remember, never hibernate on your goals.